Yo, what's happening, everybody? It's Maurice back again with another video. And today, as you can see, I'm going to do a review for this next evolution expansion for Marvel Champions that came out at this point, maybe 2 weeks ago. I finally got around to being able to play this, and I have to say, I really enjoyed this expansion. I'm not going to go over every card just to respect your time, but I'll just kind of give some overviews of how I feel about both Cable and Domino, as well as the five villains that come with this box. If you've watched my channel for a while, you know I really don't care about campaign cards, so I'm not even going to go over those and how it affects the game because I just don't play. I just don't care that much for the campaign for this game, or well, for all the expansions. But what I really feel about this expansion, I think that's really important to Marvel Champions, is the fact that there are so many cards that are out right now that is in this particular expansion that continues the game moving forward by looking backwards. And what I mean by that, as you can see with Cable here, he has some psionic cards, right? And there are more psionic cards in this expansion, and I love that because what it does is it allows psionic heroes to have more of an imprint on this game. And I think what's important about that is this game will continue getting better and continue expanding as long as older cards are being catered to. So you look at the Mutant Genesis, I think was the previous one with the X-Men, and there were some psionic cards, but there weren't a lot because all we had, if I remember correctly, was Jean Grey as a psionic character, and she gets way better with the psionic cards that both come with Cable as well as Psylocke, and I'll talk about Psylocke in a different video. But this kind of catering to those keywords that kind of felt like they were getting thrown around when the game first came out, and they're finally starting to expand on some of them. Going back and looking at those, or paying attention and dedicating more cards to those keywords is how you expand this game, because it allows for even more variability and different ways to build heroes. I already have a sweet spot for the Jean Grey hero card in this game, or her whole kit. I She was a huge surprise for me. I didn't think I would like her at all looking at the cards. But after I got her to the table and was playing, she's fantastic. And she gets even better thanks to Cable and thanks to Psylocke. And I think that that's what's important about this particular expansion, and what I think it did well compared to where Mutant Genesis kind of misstep. Because I think with Next Evolution, it didn't feel like the villains were overwhelming. And I just went through the first time with the box and just played on standard just to kind of get a feel of how the characters play. And up until I got to Strife, I just played with the precon decks with Cable and Domino, more or less just to see how they play, right? And I'll go ahead and hop in a little bit into Cable. Before I got this box, I definitely knew that I was going to play Cable. Cable is one of my favorite X-Men, and in this case, X-Force. I just love everything about him, and I think that they did a really good job with taking these player side schemes, as you can see here with his Technovirus Purge. It's essentially a side scheme that you put down that's specific to it. It doesn't hinder the player in any particular way, but you sacrifice a bit of tempo taking care of these to be able to gain something. And as you can see here with Cable, he's able to put this one down for your charge. It's 5 threat on there. He's the only one that can take care of this take care of this side scheme. Cable is a complete monster in Justice, because his whole thing that he wants to do is to be able to take out side schemes. So he, just like Cyclops, as you can see with this card here, he's able to just include player side schemes from any aspect. So this particular box comes with a few that's in aggression, justice, well, I guess all of the aspects as well as basic, which makes it a little easier for you to be able to plan around whatever villain that you play. If you like build heroes, Cable is your guy. As you can see, he gets stronger as he takes out player side schemes, because a lot of his cards, just like this one, remove 3 threat from a scheme, remove 1 additional threat from that scheme for each side scheme in the victory display. So as he's knocking those out, cards like this in his telekinetic blast, I think is the name of it, yeah. So this one deal is a 3 for 6, deal 1 additional damage to that enemy for each side scheme. So it just becomes a much stronger card. Because I mean, when I was going up against Strife, man, I was laying these cards down, doing 3 for like 13 because I just had that many side schemes. Cable is just a beast in Justice, and I think that he can do leadership pretty well. As you can see, the leadership cards that he comes with, they all work for him. So I think that he's just so much fun. I think that the inclusion of the player side schemes is such a smart way to take something that we've always accustomed to and just put a little spin on it, to make sure that it still feels fresh. Even though we are accustomed to seeing side schemes, they're normally extremely terrible. But think back to Rise of Red Skull with Taskmaster, right? You had those side schemes that would come out. You had 5 threat to get rid of them, but if you got rid of it, you got an ally for that scenario, right? And that's how that may have been the prototype for those player side schemes, right? And I think that all of these do something that feels worth it, especially if you build around whatever those player side schemes are. And anybody can put these in their deck as long as it's a part of their respective aspect. But Cable, just like Cyclops, he can just dig into different aspects for these side schemes. So I really like Cable. I think that the leadership cards, they just tried to do a little bit extra for the X-Force. I really like Mission Leader. And here we go with the soldier trait, something that was never really capitalized on. And we're finally seeing something with the soldier trait being used, where if you have a soldier trait, it costs 1 less. And each time you defeat a side scheme, each player draws a card. That's that's such an easy pick for Cable, but he's pretty cool. And this is also another card I really love. So double the number of resources this card generates while paying for a psionic card. So similar to the power of aggression or the power of justice, power of leadership. We have now cards that are specific to key traits. And I think that that's super important because it eases and there's no that you don't have a max of 2 on these, right? Like these, you have a max of 3 now, per the deck building rules, right? So now we can put 3 of these in here, and if you're playing a hero that is psionic, this is almost a no-brainer to put into your deck. And I think, especially with it being a mental resource, I think that furthers, the play of justice. And both what's his name, Cable and Jean Grey are phenomenal in Justice, so it just creates even more for them. And once again, I won't go over every card. Some of these are repeats, like the sidearm. The scimitar was all right, but yeah, that was my thing with Cable. I think he's really a really fun build hero. He feels really good in the late game, carries well into the end game. His deck thinning allows him to be able to get to his events much quicker as you take out those player side schemes. Yeah, he just becomes a monster late game, and I love playing with him. Domino. I think Domino might be one of the most broken characters in the game. When I first played her, I just wasn't understanding what she was trying to do. And then it just clicked. I don't know if any of y'all played the Harry Potter deck building game, but she plays like Neville, where she wants to discard cards. And once I saw it that way, that changed everything for me, because that's my favorite player to play. Well, that was my favorite character to play as in Harry Potter, the deck building game, because he gets to draw a ton of cards, discard cards, and as he's discarding cards, he get money and damage to be able to dish out across the table. And I think that Domino is the same exact way, and it feels so good when you guess what you're discarding, and it does these ridiculous things for her. So whenever she's discounting cards, she can count the wild cards, the wild resources twice if they're printed. And a lot of her cards depend on her discarding off the top of the deck. And it might sound a little dangerous because you'll get more encounter cards that way, but I think it's totally worth it. It is definitely a risk versus reward build with her. She reminds me a lot of Star Lord, where you just take a ton of risks, but she has a bit of risk mitigation with her alter ego and hero action, where on her hero side she can choose a card in her hand, swap that with the top card of the deck. So if there's a card in your hand that you know that you're about to discard because of another card, you can slide that on top, get the one that's on top, and then just do your business. And I think that she can just deal out a ton of damage so quickly. I think she's a phenomenal rush hero, and I think that she works extremely well in leadership. I think that she. I can't imagine what kind of decks people have built with it right now. I haven't played as much as I normally do, but this past week I did just kind of buckle down and get through the box, and I just had so much fun with her. I think that she is just dangerous, man. She's consistently discarding cards, but it just feels so good. Like, this card is super fun to play if you can get to it. Discard the top card of your deck and count the resources on it. For each resource counted this way, if it is, and then you can see the choices here. It feels so good when you discard 2 wilds, or you can do 2 of these actions. Oh my goodness, man. It's just phenomenal. Just jackpot, where it's a 3 resource card, which is definitely like a rare thing to see in this game, but it feels so good when you get something like that. With this one, if this is discarded off the top of the deck, it just gets shuffled immediately back in, which helps with some of these cards like this one, where if you play Luck Be a Lady and then you discard that jackpot, you get to do all 3 of these, right? Heal 2 damage from a character, remove 2 threat, deal 3 damage to an enemy. Like, I think she is so much fun, and her supports and upgrades just play extremely well. It's all in on discarding cards from your deck, and it just works so well. And she has some things that help with mitigating some of that, because as you can see, she's got that 1, 2, 3 stat line. So you put yourself in risky positions, so at least you have a high enough defense to be able to kind of get herself out of that madness. But she comes with some relatively decent justice cards. I really like Pharaoh. Pharaoh is so fun to play with her. It's one of those cards where she definitely feels much. Pharaoh feels far better with Domino, but Pharaoh works with whoever you put Pharaoh with. Just does a ton of thwarting and a ton of damage, and it gives you a way, if you're trying to deck thin, to get back through your deck. That's another good way to do it. But it comes with a lot of cards that we've seen already. Take Out the Guards is a pretty cool one. If you are somebody, you're playing as somebody that's struggling with taking out guards, I think that this is a good one to add. It is 8. Well, I always play 2-handed, so I just look at it as 8. But it has a relatively high threshold. But if you can get past it, hey man, that's just 2 4 justices. Ain't nothing too crazy. But yeah, her cards are pretty good, and this Digging Deep is so dope. It's just a wild resource, but if it's discarded off from the top of your deck, it's added to your hand. So when you think of some of those cards like Caliban, I know he was with Cable. Let me see if I can find. There he goes. So he's somebody who you just discard cards off the top of your deck until an X Factor, X Force, or X Men is discarded, and then you put that ally in your hand. Well, if you if you have those Digging Deeps that get discarded, they just come straight to your hand, and I think that's such a cool way to make it feel like you discarding cards is for naught. Like, it is a reason why you would have something like this in your hand. If you can just keep track of what it is that's still in your deck, and you got some Digging Deeps and somebody like Caliban is in your hand, you have a pretty decent chance. And as the game goes on and you don't see them, that's the higher the chances that they come out, right? So, yeah, like, it's such a cool, just such a cool aspect. So I'm here for Domino. I think that both her and Cable alone are worth the box, but let's kind of hop into these villains. I won't spend too much time on them. You're more than welcome to come and check out these villains. I'll leave the link in the description so that you can come back if you're not familiar with this website. Hall of Heroes LCG.com is where it's at. Morlock Siege. So this one is a cool scenario where you have, as you can see, like main villains of this of the Marauder crew. There's a handful of them, roughly about 6 or 7 of them, I think. And there's 2 scenarios in this box that revolves around them. So the first one, you shuffle them up in the deck, and you are trying to quote unquote route 3 of them. And they have, let me see, yeah, this routed card here. Cards under here are not in play. So after the villain is defeated, put it under here. Discard each minion that shares a title with the top villain of the villain deck. The villain activates against each player in player order. Yeah, so it's a way to kind of like if you're rushing through them, you have a slight payment in dealing with some damage or just getting them out of there. But you start off with a villain. If you're able to defeat them, then another villain comes out and activates against you. And they are trying to take out they're trying to take out these Morlocks. So when you start off, you have this main scheme where after resolving step 1 of the villain phase, place 1 knock counter on here. If there's 3 of them, then you advance to 2A, which brings you to this one, where you have the ability to use one of your actions to exhaust a Morlock ally, and that shuffles the hide card. Which, let me see, did I pass it up? There we go. So whenever this is revealed, it gives a Morlock it gives one of the Morlock allies a tough status card. And when that particular main scheme, not the main scheme, but whenever you started, you start off with one of the Morlocks and you're trying to defend them. So if there are no more Morlock allies in the game, then you lose. So it's kind of a way of you trying to defend these guys while these heinous villains are trying to take them out. But this one was pretty cool. Like all of having these different villains, the variability of playing through this not this campaign, but this scenario, you can play it 3 times, and every last time you play would be extremely different. So I like that there's some variability to it. So it takes what we saw with Sinister Motives with the Sinister Six and kind of created a different scenario where you have actual villains and not what seems to be like slightly overpowered minions coming at you. So I think they did a good job with this one. And the second one, you're just trying to stop one of them from getting away from or getting away with Hope. And so she'll be, there'll be one villain, and they also have a what do you call them? Like a modular set where they have all of those villains as a modular set. So you just take out the one that you have. That's a villain, and they're trying to run away with Hope. And that one felt pretty good. It's a minion heavy one. The minions are pretty nasty. A lot of them have teamwork. So it's just trying to just way through all of these villains to get to this one person, and they got some pretty nasty side schemes and attachments that try to slow you down. But the nice thing about it is that they don't have a lot of health, so that really helps with really trying to rush them down if you can, which I appreciate. Juggernaut might be my favorite villain in the whole box. Like, he's super simple. Hulk should have been like this, but he's super simple in how he plays. He have his helmet, which it has 2 sides. So you can see here with his helmet, when it's on, he gains Stalwart and Overkill. If you spend 3 resources of the same type, you can remove the helmet. And he takes an additional damage for each card with the from each card with the printed resource. So I think that's that's huge if you play aggression, because a lot of those have the 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 mental resources, or help with trying to get rid of them fast, which you kind of want to do if you can, because my man can hit like a truck. He can hit like a truck, but he's super fun with this whole dynamic of trying to get rid of his helmet. He just has ways of activating, and it'll happen when you least expect it. And there were just times where I was afraid to flip over what was coming out of that deck, because I knew that he was going to try to hit me with something nasty, especially when his counters get up to like 3 and 4. It's deadly because he gains one attack for each of those momentum counters. And as you can see, he starts off pretty easy with 2, 3, and 4. It just gets nasty after a while. My man just start hitting like Ronin. So he's super simple. And you have Hope Summers for this scenario. And I think the next two as well with Mr. I almost called him Mr. Strife. Mr. Sinister and Strife. And it's just so it's a lot of fun, man. Like it feel like original Marvel champions, where you have relatively simple heroes that can somehow still take you out the game pretty quickly if you're not paying attention to them, with some nasty minions. This feels like Core Box Rise of the Red Skull. Love it. Love it. And then you got Mr. Sinister. I think I had more problems with him than I did Strife somehow. But Mr. Sinister is nasty as the game, because he really tries to push the tempo with trying to get himself to advance his schemes, because you can see he'll start off with like two. I want to say he start off. He has two main. Well, there's technically three main schemes. So it's the bulking up, focusing in, and sinister ends, and you kind of shuffle them up, and you pick two, and then the third one goes out of the game, and each of the different schemes are associated with some of his attachments. So he'll have a deck of like you see here with flight. There's 5 of them. There's 5 super strength, and there's 5 telepathy. So depending on the side scheme you get, those are the cards that get added to his encounter deck. So he's just getting stronger as you go up against him, and his scheming gets out of control in this game. So he's somebody he plays relatively fast. So this one feels like a Galaxy's Most Wanted villain. Most certainly, where it's like, man, if you're not prepared for what he's got, he's just gonna run clean over you, and it's not even gonna be. It's just not gonna be fun if you don't get to him. But I like that challenge because, as y'all know, Galaxy's Most Wanted is my favorite. So that's this was right at home for me. So I really enjoyed this one. He was a man. He was just a. Ooh, he was terrible. Strife. Now, I think Strife was probably the easiest big boss that I've seen in a long time. I mean, we just got through dealing with 2 of the worst with Venom Goblin and Magneto. Magneto really is not that hard, in the sense that getting his health down is hard. He's just hard because he's just constantly throwing things at you, and it's just a lot. It's just a lot to keep track of. Whereas with this one, it gives you a really interesting puzzle to solve, because he'll get to the point where you either have to get rid of like Strife's grasp, which, as you can see, that hinder is insane. So if you're playing 2-player, that's 12 plus 4, 16. Luckily I had cable, man. This is where I decided to switch from leadership to justice, because I saw that and I was just like, nah, man, these boys tripping with with these limits. But once you get past either Strife's grasp or knocking him into the second or third stage, depending on what difficulty that you have. His first stage is 15 per person, so 30 on a 2-player. It's not that bad. But it's probably easier to get rid of 16 threat than it is dealing 30 damage. So that's what I end up doing, was just flipping over Strife's grass. And as you can see, even if you flip it, it goes to Living Bomb, which is still that crisis. So he's still gaining threat on that main scheme. But if you defeat him or flip him, then you'll just get this one, which, as you can see, is the Stalwart. each identity get a +2 hand size, but it increases the resource cost to each player by one, which became a super cool puzzle as I'm playing. I'm accustomed to using this one resource to be able to put this card on. I was like, oh snap, I need to do another card now. But so it creates a super cool puzzle. I thought that it was so fun to play against Strife. Like he didn't feel as bad until these started coming out. These like obligation style attachments, horrible. Oh, they were horrible. But if you're able to get past them, like he's not too terrible. Like I thought he was relatively easy compared to other villains, but maybe I have a different opinion of him once I once I play him on like Expert 2 or something like that. But he's super fun. I thought this whole box just did a phenomenal job with, I feel like, making Marvel Champions just fun. Like I felt like the villains weren't overly complicated. I think that you can make this game as hard as you want it to be with the current encounter cards, not the encounter cards, but the modular sets. Like you can make this game as hard as you want, but you still want to either see these new well, not new mechanics, but you still want to see some of these mechanics be used in a new way, like the player side scheme, or bringing some of these traits in that just felt like they were thrown on there just for the sake of either theme or just a way for them to have a trait. Now they're being used for something, and this is how you continue to expand on a LCG and make it last for a long time. I mean, they've, of course, Fantasy Flight have had plenty of practice with the Lord of the Rings LCG and Arkham Horror, but now with Marvel Champions, I think this is the pocket where they are the best. So I really love this. I put this up there with Sinister Motives and Rise of the Red Skull in the way that I've ranked them. I think that this is so much fun, and it caters to the rest of the game. And I think that this is how you continue to extend on it. I don't know how they're going to make the new one, as you know, once you get through the box, you'll know who the main villain of the next one is. So I don't know how they're going to do that one. I just hope it's not like Rise of the, not Rise, the Mad Titans Shadow, where it just felt like a war of attrition with a ton of those villains. Those games are just too long, man. So I have a lot of hope that they are on the right track. I think Mutant Genesis was a little tough, and I know a lot of the community was wanting this to kind of be a reset of Marvel Champions, where you have the X-Men be the new core set. And it was not that. It was not that. But that's okay. Like, I really like Cyclops and Jean Grey. I really like Storm. I think that some of the villains were decent. Like, Sabretooth was super fun, but it's not it's definitely not friendly to newer players. Or neither of those villains were. But I think that this one is on that right track where it still feel like I could introduce somebody to this game and have them play against Juggernaut, and with it being like the 7th cycle, it still don't feel like, I don't think that they would be overwhelmed by figuring him out, right? So I think that yeah, they're on the right track, man. I really love this one. This one was really good. The heroes are really good. I'm excited to continue kind of playing through them and see what's going on. But let me know what y'all think of this one. I think that this was phenomenal, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think that as long as they keep on that track where they're trying to help extend or add on to some of these traits, this game will just keep thriving, man. I don't think that there will be much of a lull with this one. Like, I think people are going to just continue to play with a lot of these cards in droves, man. So yeah, let me know what y'all think of it. Once again, Maurice, I think that my name is Maurice. I think that this expansion was just so cool, man. I'm a huge fan of it. But y'all have a good one.